let's get back to that. Welcome to the Reading Half Marathon 2015 training webinar. We've got about 4 weeks to go now, which means that we're into the final push, and most of the hard work has been done. But there's still 4 weeks, which means there's still a good amount of improvements, we say, that you can make in order to have the best possible race experience on March 22nd. Now, my name's George Anderson, for those of you who don't know who I am, although it says on the information blurb at the top of the page there. But I am the training partner with the Reading Half Marathon this year, and I've been involved with the race actually for the last 12 years. I think it's about 12 years now. Normally taking the warm-up at the beginning, but also running as one of the pacemakers and organising a team of pacemakers. And I'll probably mention a little bit about that at some point during the webinar. But one thing I would also say is that if you're on here, if you're not on my Reading Half Marathon email list, and if you are, you'll know it because you get an email every Sunday, normally around 7 p.m. With RHM 2015 in the header. And if you're not on that, then you definitely want to get on it, because I'm going to be sharing a lot more information with you over the next few weeks, and certainly increasing the amount of information I give you, and training tips, how to get the most out of the day. I'll be covering nutrition and a load of other stuff. So to get on that list after this webinar, go to readinghalfmarathontraining.co.uk. That's readinghalfmarathontraining.co.uk. Stick your email address in the box, and you'll be added to the list there. Just make sure you check your spam. There's a confirmation link you have to click on as well. Now, what we're going to cover tonight is what I regard as some of the little levers that are going to have an impact on your training. The big levers are the things that you've been doing, hopefully, up to now. I mean, I shouldn't imagine that anybody who's really taking this seriously is just starting to think about their training now. I know there'll be some lunatics who turn up on the day and just see what happens. But I'm imagining that you, given that you're diligent enough to tune into a live webinar this evening, that you're getting a little bit better prepared than that. So the big stuff, the big levers are your training sessions, and going out there, increasing a long run, doing some threshold work, working on the hills, working on your speed. That's what's that's the big stuff. Okay, I'm going to take it as read that you're doing that. So I'm not going to talk too much about the big stuff. What I want to cover tonight is the little levers, the small stuff, the little adjustments you can make to not just your training, but the way you approach your life over the next 4 weeks. They're going to add a huge amount of value to what happens on the day itself, your race day experience. And these are the tiny little things that, well, there's 7 of them actually that we're going to cover, ranging through training to mindset and nutrition as well. They're kind of the 3 main areas, the 3 main broad things that you can cover, you can have an impact on. So that's what I'm going to be covering tonight. But what I also want to say is I'll probably be going for about 20 minutes of actual presentation. But what I want you to encourage you to do is to ask your questions as a comment on the Facebook page. If you're watching this through Facebook, and most of you probably are, it is going through my YouTube channel as well. But if you're watching this through Facebook, then leave a comment down below on the post that this video is on. And then when I finish my short presentation, I'm going to go through those questions and hopefully come up with some sort of semblance of reasonable and logical answer. If I can't come up with an answer, then I'll tell you. I won't just make something up, but I'll hopefully point you in the direction of where you can get more information. I probably won't go into too much detail. If you have personal injury questions, then they're probably not the best ones to ask tonight. If you do have injuries and you have issues, then jump onto the Reading Half Marathon training group, and we'll hopefully get some physios onto there who will be able to give you at least a little bit of a pointer as to what you might like to think about between now and then to get yourself to the start line in the best possible condition. So minimize the injury related questions if you do have any, but if you've got a burning question, stick it below. I'll get to that at the end. So what are these little levers, as I call them? Well, I'm going to tell you what the first one is, and that's the precision with which you apply yourself to your training session, your training sessions over the next 4 weeks. So gone are the days now where you can just go out there and just go for a run and expect it to have some sort of contribution to your performance on the race, in the race. What you need to be looking at now is exactly what contribution each and every single one of your training sessions is going to make, because we're kind of running out of time now. If we take the taper as being 2 weeks, really we've only got less than 2 weeks. It's Tuesday now. We've got less than 2 weeks to go where you can really make some impact into your half marathon fitness before the taper begins. So there's a fairly small number of training sessions, which means you have to be as precise as possible with knowing exactly what your objectives are with each session. So if you're on a long run, if it's an aerobic long run, you need to know what pace you're heading out at. And you work that out by, I wrote an email and a blog about this quite recently, but you work out what your target time is, and then you add on perhaps a couple of minutes, 90 seconds to 2 minutes per mile to your target race pace. And that should be your long, slow run pace. So don't make the mistake that most half marathon runners will make, which is to go too quick, maybe even at race pace for the long run. It's a huge, monumental mistake to do that, because it will burn you out. You're not going to get the aerobic benefits that you really need. The reason you're doing that session is to build up your aerobic engine. And if you go too quick, i.e. half marathon pace, then that ain't going to happen. In fact, if you go to my blog, which is runningbygeorge.com, and just scroll back through a couple of posts, you'll see an article, a very short 500-word article I wrote on exactly that subject, explains why you need to be going out slower. But anyway, I've gone into a bit too much of a detail there. I just want to make sure that you understand the importance of pace and specificness when you're specific objectives when you're approaching each and every one of your remaining few training sessions. So be precise. Don't waste any more opportunities to make an impact on your performance on the day. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really rather boring, because it's sleep. But if I were to really pick out a couple of things that I was going to think would be, this is not just little levers. This is a very big lever here. This is going to make a big difference to your results. You need to be looking at getting as much sleep as you can, which sounds kind of weird between now and the race, and explain why. See, your performance, your improvements in your performance is a function of two things. It's you give yourself the training stimulus. You go out, you do your threshold runs, you do your hills, you do your long runs, and it has an impact, a physiological impact on your body. But that doesn't make you fitter. That actually makes you slower initially. You only get stronger and fitter once your body recovers and it overcompensates for the stimulus that you've given it. And the time it does that is when you're asleep. So if you're not getting enough sleep, especially on those days when you're going out giving it those hard training sessions, if you're not getting enough sleep then you're not going to be taking as much away from those training sessions as you might otherwise have done. And I don't think it's just me. Half marathon training is hard, right? You're not out there on a holiday. It's difficult. You're working hard. You're pushing yourself. You're maybe even getting close to your physical limits. So don't waste any of the potential gains you're going to get from each of these sessions. Get to bed on time, at least on the nights following one of your running training sessions. So if that means you're training 3 times a week, and that's what I recommend in terms of the number of runs you do each week. If you're running 3 times a week, that's 3 early nights each week. As a minimum, you should be aiming for. Now, if that hasn't been happening up till now, don't panic, don't worry about it, but try and make a point of getting to bed on time between now and the race, and especially the night before the race. You want to be feeling refreshed. I mean, I don't even tell you, you know how much better you feel once you've had a good night's sleep. You feel amazing, right? Then let's harness that, because it's not just you feeling good, it's your body feeling good, it's your recovery improving and accelerating. And that's what we want. We want to harness all the adaptations that you get from putting these hard training sessions in during the week, and you want to get fitter and stronger as much as possible due to following each one of them. Okay, the next one is nutrition. And again, like sleep, if you haven't been as diligent as you perhaps could have been with your nutrition over the last however many weeks, maybe you've made some changes, maybe there's a little bit more you could do. Well, now is the time to make those changes. And on a similar note to the sleep, really, because what nutrition will do, good nutrition will do anyway, it will help improve and enhance your recovery. You're putting your body through the ringer multiple times a week. You need to give it the building blocks so it can rebuild itself, and you can get fitter and you can get stronger. They can't do that if you haven't got the essential fatty acids. It can't do that if you haven't got the nutrients, the raw ingredients that go into making your body a fitter version of the one it is today. So my recommendation isn't to load up with loads and loads of carbohydrates. My nutrition philosophies are perhaps a little bit different to what most running coaches and running magazines would have you believe. And it's fine if you subscribe to that school of thought, but my personal belief is that the more high density nutrients you can put into your body, the better. So as a priority, it ain't starchy carbohydrates, it ain't pasta, it ain't bread, it ain't potatoes and rice and oats. that stuff may have its place, but it's not a priority. I definitely don't recommend big old plates of pasta before, after, during a run. It's just not necessary. My opinion, you may disagree. However, what I found works is giving your body as many high density nutrients as possible. So your green veggies in particular, all veggies, but green in particular, fruits, a range of fruits. If you're going to get carbohydrates and sugars, get them from fruits, because at least you're getting masses and masses of nutrients at the same time. Blend them up, put them into smoothies, eat them raw, however you want to have them. Actually, fruits are great, but I would rank veggies, in particular green veggies, above fruits. So get as much of that as you can. 5 a day, let's go for 10. Just keep on cranking it up. And smoothies are a great way to do this, because you can nail 3 or 4 in one portion, no problem whatsoever. And by the way, frozen fruits and veggies, just as good as the fresh stuff. In fact, sometimes some say better, because it's frozen. It's sourced within a couple of hours, so you lock in all those nutrients, and then you don't have the problems of it sitting on supermarket shelves or in cold storage for a few days and the nutrients leaching out of the goodies. So that's one thing. Fats as well. Make sure you're getting enough healthy fats, in particular omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, and the reason for this is that you're doing a lot of running right now. If you hadn't noticed, you're doing a lot of running. Don't think you need me to tell you that. But when you run, you cause a lot of inflammation in your body. If you have other stresses in your life as well, and who doesn't, then your inflammation levels are going to increase. Now, that's okay, our body can handle that. But if you get this state of chronic inflammation, then that can become a problem. And your body starts breaking down. It's the precursor to many diseases as well. This is chronic inflammation. Not too, well, we're worried about that, but actually in the context of training, that's not really a huge concern, a direct, immediate concern. But when it comes to your recovery, it is a problem, because it means you're not going to be recovering quickly enough. Your body's going to break down, and eventually the last thing you want is to get injured at this stage of the game. Anti-inflammatory foods like omega-3 fatty acids, for example, so you get that in walnuts, flaxseed, oily fish like salmon and sardines and mackerel. Omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory, so they combat the effects of the inflammation in your body. And that's a good thing. If you don't think you're going to get enough, if you really don't like nuts, or you can't eat nuts and you're not a fish person, then supplement with omega-3. It's the only supplement really we should all be taking. There's a couple of others that I recommend, but omega-3 is an absolute must. So get yourself onto that if you don't think you're getting enough in your natural diet. But other fats like coconut oil, really, really healthy oil. We can really use a lot of those fats, for energy production and for other functions in our body as well. Chia seeds, all these kind of superfoods. Get as much of this stuff into your body as possible. Don't hold back. Use this opportunity between now and March 22nd to fill your body with as much nutritional goodness as you can. And you'll find that actually it fuels you through many of your training sessions way better than big bowls of pasta. Nutrition is about 2 things. It's about putting all the good stuff in to your diet and eliminating some of the, or most of the bad stuff. So it's about balance. If you can't eliminate everything, all the bad stuff, then just focus on getting in all the good stuff. And at least you're going to be going some way there to balancing things out and fueling and sustaining your body. Now you're putting yourself through the ringer. Like I said, each time you go out and run, you want to make sure you've got the building blocks to develop your fitness as a consequence of those training sessions. Swiftly following nutrition as our fourth little lever to pull is hydration. So closely related, but obviously not quite the same thing. Again, you may already be fantastic at drinking loads of water. You may not a problem whatsoever, but most of us aren't. Most of us are pretty bad at drinking water. I've got a glass here. I tend to have either a glass of water or a bottle of water with me most of the time. It's like a prop for me, and it reminds me to drink it. If I didn't, I'd probably just forget. So do whatever it takes to remind yourself to drink and have plenty of fluids going into your body all the time. Because what the mistake a lot of runners make is a couple of days before they start to overhydrate. They start to drink loads and loads of water. They think, oh my goodness, I've got a race coming up. I've got to be properly hydrated. And all that happens is you end up going to the toilet all the time because you're putting loads of water in, and it's not going to suddenly rehydrate your body. It takes time. And over a 4-week period, gradually increase the amount of water that you're drinking, and you'll gradually rehydrate your body, not just your body, but your cells as well. Your muscles will become more more fluid. You'll every gram of glycogen, which is stored carbohydrate you have in your muscles, you have 4 grams of water as well. You don't want those muscles to be dehydrated. Okay, you need to have that hydration level. Your skin, the cells, well, your skin as well, but the cells of your body, every cell has a membrane that surrounds a cell, and this membrane in a dehydrated body finds it very hard to pass nutrients into the cell and detritus, byproducts of work, out. It's very hard to get those toxins out of the cell and hard to get the nutrients in if it's a brittle, non-permeable membrane. So get hydrated, and that's going to increase or improve your cell hydration as well. So it really does come down to a cellular level. Most people, like I said, aren't very good at drinking water. I'm making no assumptions whatsoever about you. You might be fantastic at drinking, but if you're not, then it's definitely one of the levers that you can pull that's going to make a difference. And you know what? You don't have to do any extra training to get those advantages. You just drink more water. It's as simple as that. Okay, another thing that runners are notoriously bad at is body conditioning, and this will be number 6 for me. Number 5. Body conditioning is everything from stretching to foam rolling to stability training to strength training to power training, everything that isn't running. Actually, no, it's not quite everything that isn't running. I wouldn't class cross training like swimming or walking or cycling. Those cross training aerobic activities, that's not really body conditioning. But everything else that you do maybe at home or in the gym, body conditioning. Apply yourself to this a little bit better in the next few weeks. Find it something you tend to skimp on, then now is not the time to be doing that. You really want to be doing it for 2 main reasons. Number 1, it will help strengthen your body. It'll help you get more performance out of your body. The more mobile you are, the more supple you are, the quicker you'll recover, and the better you'll perform during training and in the race. But the second reason is that it helps to bulletproof your body against injury. It helps to reduce your chances of picking up those irritating little niggles, which maybe 6 weeks ago was less of an issue. But my goodness me, 3 weeks from the race, you do not want to be getting niggles if you can avoid it. And body conditioning and really paying attention to your body can help with that process. Within all this as well, I would highly recommend booking in for a chiropractic or a physiotherapy session. Even if you don't have any injuries, it's well worth spending 50 quid or whatever it costs your local physio for a bit of an MOT, bit of a checkup. Get yourself aligned properly. Chances are you'll have a couple of vertebrae that are slightly out of kilter. Really, really common for that to be the case. But it wouldn't take very much for them to clink and click that back into position again and get you running true. Again, it's all about injury prevention. When I did every race that I've done that I've really seriously trained for, I've made a point of having regular physio or chiropractic treatment in the lead up to it. And that's kept me injury free or stopped niggles developing into something more serious. So go and get yourself booked in. Massage as well. Get a massage. And if you don't normally have massage, just go and have a rub down once or twice between now and the race, and it will really help just to flush things out, get you to the start line as prepared as possible. Okay, 2 more to go. One of them is the last one is a visualization technique and actually mastering your mind so you know exactly how it's going to feel on a day, and doing this on a regular basis between now and the race. I'm going to come on to that in a second, but before that, I want to talk about some of the practical things that you can do that you can really get your head around between now and then as well. So just hopefully you've had your race pack delivered to you by now. If you haven't and you're expecting it, I think they've all been sent out now. If not, then maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but if you haven't had yours, then just contact the organisers and check that yours has been sent out, so you know, because you want that confidence on the day. You want to know when you get there exactly what's happening. And if this is your first time at Reading, it's a fantastic event and it is superbly organised. It's like clockwork. It's one of the best organised events I've ever been to. But you still want to get your head around how it's all going to work on the day. Now, in my email list, again, if you're not on it, then readinghalfmarathontraining.co.uk, go there, stick your email address in the box, and you'll be on my list. I'll be talking about some of the final preparations for the race day. So the race day practical stuff, and there's about sort of 20 or so different things that I recommend you do. Things to take with you, things to bring, exactly what time you have to get there, planning what time you leave the house, what time you get up, what you have for breakfast, all those little things that you don't want to be worrying about the day before, because it's going to raise your stress levels. You don't want that. You want to be getting there, just being completely masterful and focused on one thing, which is your performance. You don't want to have to worry about anything else. You just want to worry about how you're going to perform on the day. Okay, so number 6 for this is really just to take control now, plan everything as much as you can, decide exactly what kit you're going to be taking with you, exactly what bag you're going to take, exactly what time you're going to leave. All those little things that make a big, big difference to how you feel in terms of confidence on the day itself. So the last thing then, before, and again, if you have any questions, don't forget, ask them, type. I'm not checking at the moment, so maybe the question's there already, I'm not sure. But type them below as a comment, as a separate comment, and I will get back to them. I'll go through them in just a second. I'll get the phone out and I'll just start scrolling through Facebook and answering as many questions as possible. But before I do that, I want to introduce you, if you're not already familiar with the concept of visualization, because it can be a really powerful technique, and it's not something you just have to do on the day itself. See, visualization is where you create an imagined future where you're, in this case, I'm going to ask you in a second to imagine yourself at the finish line of the Reading Half Marathon, having crossed the line in your predicted time. The time is going to make you very, very happy. And we're going to paint that picture in as much detail as possible. Just spend a minute, maybe 2 minutes, going through this sequence, this process. It's a really simple thing to do. But then for you to do this on a regular basis, maybe once a day even, just spending a few moments, just taking some time out of your life and closing your eyes and relaxing for a moment and imagining what it's going to be like. It's a very, very effective technique because the brain doesn't actually register the difference between imagination and reality. And so as far as your brain's concerned, you've already done it. They still have to do the training, you still have to do the race. But what we're looking at here is getting you to the start line feeling completely in control, absolutely focused and confident that what is about to happen is not only possible but likely, because you've done everything that you need to do. So if you don't want to do this bit, that's fine, but I recommend give us a go. Nothing to lose. It takes like a minute. I want you to just, as you sit there now, just, you can either do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. If you prefer to close your eyes, then that's fine. Just take a deep breath and relax, and just feel these shoulders relax and soften, and maybe uncross your arms, uncross your feet. And as you sit there, I want you to just paint a picture in your mind's eye of yourself crossing the finish line at the Reading Half Marathon on March 22nd in the Medici Stadium in your target finish time. And you can see your watch on your wrist, and you can see it's reading out the time that you just stopped it on, exactly where you want to be finishing. And I want you to just paint as much detail into this picture as possible. So take a few moments there to think about the clothes that you're probably going to be wearing. Think about what it's going to look like in that stadium with all those thousands of people there watching you. And they are just watching you. They're not watching anybody else. They're just watching you. And all the other runners around you, the finished gantry, the metal floor, the pitch of the Reading Half Marathon football ground. And I want you to think about the sound that you'll hear as well. I want you to think about the roar of those crowds, the sound that they're going to make, the atmosphere that you can hear all around you. Think about the things that people are going to say to you when you tell them about your finish time, about how successful you've just been, what you've just achieved. Everyone's saying well done and fantastic, and you know you're telling yourself what a fantastic time it was and how well you've performed. And just think about the feelings that's going to give you. What are you actually going to feel like? Maybe you can experience it right now. Maybe you're even getting a few little tingles now thinking about what it's going to be like on March 22nd when you get there to that finish line. You've done what you set out to do all those weeks and months ago. And then just open your eyes and come back out of that. And that's all you have to do. Just a couple of minutes. The longer you can dwell on that, the better. But just a couple of minutes spent visualizing a successful completion. Tick that box. Running a half marathon, personal best, whatever it is you're going for, tick. Visualize that as a real success as often and with as much intensity as you can. And you'll find that when it comes to race day, you'll have this strange sense of confidence that comes from that knowledge that this is something that's absolutely possible and likely to happen. So visualization. Just to summarize all that then, the 7 things that we've covered tonight, before I go on to some questions, we looked at precision of training. So getting out there and doing exactly what you need to do, knowing precisely what the training objective is with each of your runs. There's not that many to go, so get on board with going out with a purpose every time you leave the house. We looked at nutrition, we looked at sleep, getting as much sleep as you can, in particular on the days where you're going to be out there running and training. Nutrition was the third one, getting as much good, high quality, high density nutrients into your body to support the stresses and rigors of training. Number 4 was hydration, getting as hydrated as possible, and starting now rather than just a couple of days before the race, so your body has an opportunity to soak up all that good fluids and become better hydrated rather than just going to the toilet 30 times a day. And we looked at body conditioning, which was everything that isn't running. So it's your stretching, it's your foam rolling, it's your stretching, it's your strength conditioning, your balance work, and it's massage and MOTs like chiropractic sessions, personal training, physiotherapy sessions as well. And we looked at the practical strategies that you're going to adopt in the day, and what you're actually going to do, or, what the clothes you're going to wear, and making sure you've got your race pack. There's no stone left unturned. You've got absolute confidence with what you're going to do on the day and how you're going to get all the practical stuff, where you've got to go, what time you've got to get up in the morning, all those things. And then number 7 was visualization, where you actually imagine the successful completion of the race, and to do this several times with as much frequency and as much intensity as you can muster between now and March 22nd. It's particularly powerful to do first thing in the morning, especially on the race day itself. Get up and just imagine yourself being successful and what it's going to be like in just a few hours' time. Okay, so time to have a look, see if there are any questions. Let me see. Oh, I got a notification there from you guys, the running half marathon, saying you can hear me. Well, that's fortunate, because I've just been rabbiting on for 20 minutes. Let me have a quick look here, see if I can tune in. I'll have to do it on this, I think, rather than the phone. And okay, right. Just bear with me for a second. Get this up. Running half marathon. No idea what I'm going to get here. That's the thing. Right. Okay. Oh, another thing as well. By the way, jump onto the Facebook coaching group, which I have set up, which I think there's a link I posted as the first comment to this post, to this video post. Jump on there, request to join. I'll let you in. I've got no scruples about who I let into my group, and that's a great place to ask questions as well, and sharing the victories and all that. It's a really great group. There's some great people in there as well. Okay, let's take a little looky here, see what we got with questions. Okay, Veronica, almost missed it, but I didn't. Okay, that wasn't a question. Sorry, Veronica. Claire, I'm running as part of my marathon training. Should I treat it as a training run or go for it? If, Claire, you're talking about the London Marathon, which after all, that is the marathon, it's probably about the right time to race Reading. And many people will be doing Reading as a part. It's one of the best reasons it's such a great race. It's a perfectly positioned race for London. It depends on when it is, if it is indeed London. But if you're listening to this and you're also using Reading as a stepping stone event, then it depends on what your event is as to whether or not you train. In my training programs that I write for my Intelligent Marathon training program, then I have a half marathon time trial. And actually you use the results of that half marathon to predict what sort of shape you're in for the marathon. So you've got a better idea what sort of pace to go out at. So probably I'd say go for it. Don't hold back. Veronica, question from Veronica. What do you think about during long runs? Well, I'll tell you what I think about during long runs. It's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. He said, I sometimes feel like managing the head is more difficult than the body. I'm a great counter. I do like counting. Last year, actually, in September of last year, I ran 10 back-to-back marathons. So marathon day, 26.2 miles, one a day, so for 10 straight days. And I had a lot of time to think, because I also planned the route to be exactly the same every day, and it was a 5-mile loop. So I was doing 5 and a bit of these 5-mile loops for 10 days straight, so 50 of these loops. I had plenty of time to think when I was out running. And I'm not a big music listener when I'm running. I'd like to just have my thoughts. And there's lots of things you can think about. One of the things I do is just count. I count steps, I time how long those steps take, and I use that time to sort of tune into my body and try to imagine making not just every run count, as I mentioned, the first step there, precision training, trying to make every footstep of every run count. So actually getting better becoming a better runner with each footstep because I'm getting more precise, I'm relaxing more, I'm thinking about my posture, I'm thinking about my breathing more. I'm just tuning into the physiological adaptations that are taking place within my body. Now, that's what I think about when I'm running, not all the time, but that's one of the things that certainly occupies my mind for a large swathe of it. Sometimes it's nice to empty your mind. There's all sorts of ways of doing it, but if you feel those negative thoughts coming into your head, then use that. It's just a conversation. Answer that conversation, or answer that question, those questions that you ask yourself with sensible answers. If you can't come up with anything, if the voice in your head is telling you you can't do it or it's becoming quite negative, then just accept those reservations and park them to one side for a little while and answer them later on. Time will pass anyway. You're going to do that distance. You're going to do those runs. Time will pass. So just have that discussion after the run has finished. There's all sort of psychology going on when you're on these long runs. It's part of the adventure. So enjoy it. Okay, next question. Emma, what would you recommend to eat the day before the half marathon and the day of the half marathon, before and after the race? Now, that's another great question. It's a common question I get asked. And it's something, Emma, that I will be answering in more detail on my emails, and probably for the column I'm writing for the Chronicle, and probably even the emails that are being sent out to you guys anyway through the Reading Half Marathon. But get onto my mailing list because I'll be going into more detail on there. Not restricted with the word count, see. So in general, though, what I would suggest you do is try to practice what you do, what you're planning on doing on race day, for your long runs. So let's say you have 3 more long runs to do, maybe just 2 more, whatever your program is. If you're on mine, you've probably got 1, 2, 3 more long runs to go. Practice your race day strategy with those long runs. Don't do anything different on race day. That's the key thing, really. Definitely don't do anything different on race day. If you're planning on having a big old bowl of pasta the night before, it's up to you. But if that's what you want to do, then that's what. If you feel that's the best thing to do, I personally don't. I think just a regular meal, maybe with some extra carbohydrates, but not masses and masses. If you're not used to it, then have that the day before you go out for your long run. And on the day itself, wake up in the morning, try and time at least one of your long runs. So you start at 10 o'clock in the morning, time of the Reading Half Marathon. At least I think it is. It normally is. Hopefully someone will correct me if I'm wrong with that one. So you go through the same process. So then on the day, again, there's no surprises. So practice before you get to the race. You don't do anything different at all on the day. Another Emma. Hi, George. This is my first half marathon. I had a baby 7 months ago and started training about 4.5 months ago. Well, congratulations, first of all, Emma. I've been having bad luck with injuries. I haven't trained as hard as I planned to. It's aiming for 2.5 hours. Most I've done is 9 miles at 10:47 per mile. Okay, if you're up to 9 miles and you've got 4 weeks to go, Emma, I'd say you're not on that's not too shabby at 10:47 per mile. I'm not sure what the problem is. Possibly shooting sprints. With anything with injuries, I would definitely, especially niggles like that. It's quite a long question there. Time isn't a huge problem. It's for charity. Finishing is the main goal. Under 2.5 hours would be an amazing bonus. That's the question there. Hopefully you can read these questions as well as I'm going through them. If it's a real injury, then get yourself to a physio. If it's something like shin splints, which is an irritating niggle, it can be it can be debilitating, then there are a few things you can do to try and combat that. So running as much as you can on grass, looking at the footwear that you've got. It's no way too late right now to change your trainers. You could get new pair of trainers and see if that makes a difference. And try and avoid too much up and downhill, because that can also cause a problem with your shins. But there's probably an underlying cause as to why you're getting issues with your shin splints. So just take care with that. But if you're up to 9 miles now, even if you just poodle around for the next 4 weeks, you will get round that race, that course. No question, you will get round it. If that's the objective, then you just don't want to be lining up on the start line with a real serious injury, with really painful shins at the start. You want to feel comfortable and confident. So that would be my answer to that. Lauren, I struggle to run in the morning after eating. What would you recommend eating the morning of the half marathon? Not going to sit heavy on the stomach. Again, well, it depends on what you normally eat. Obviously, you struggle to run in the morning after eating. It depends on what time you eat, I suppose. I mean, the race is at 10 o'clock. So if you got up and ate at 6 o'clock in the morning and then traveled, then that might be okay because you've had 4 hours then. But again, it's something you want to practice, Lauren, and try different strategies. Adam Russell, what would you recommend is the best amount of water to drink pre-race? Again, if you're properly hydrated, then you can just drink the normal amount of water, maybe slightly more go for a wee, and then stop drinking about half an hour before the race. I mean, I find that if I can drink right the way up to the race. London Marathon, I was a pacemaker this last year, and I probably went through the best part of 3 liters of water during the race, and I probably didn't go to the toilet for about 2 hours afterwards. But some people find that if they have anything to drink within an hour or two, then they're going to be going to the toilet mid-race. That's kind of irritating when you have to do that. So it's going to be different for everybody. I'm afraid the cop-out answer is, Adam. But again, it's something to experiment with. So try different hydration strategies. There's loads of water stations on the course. If you go onto the Running Half Marathon website, it'll show you the map of exactly where those water stations are, so you know how frequently you're going to come to water. And try to train accordingly. So try to train and take water on at the same time. You don't want to be carrying water with you, really. If you can pick it up from the water stations during the race, then that's definitely your best solution. But in terms of how much you can drink the better hydrated you can get now, the better hydrated you'll be when it comes to race day itself. Claire Gourlay, hi Claire. That's not what she said, that's what I'm saying. She's one of my bootcamp members. Hi George, what slower speeds do you have pacemakers for? It's a very pessimistic question there, Claire. What slower speeds do we have pacemakers for? Well, we have pacemakers. We've always had pacemakers between 1 hour 30 and 2 hours 30 in 5-minute increments. And I know a little bit about your training. You're in good shape right now. You're not going to be any slower than 2:30. Okay. So, but actually, having said that, we have also got, as far as I'm led to believe, and this isn't anything that I've organised, I think it's something that the Sweatshop are putting on, motivational runners. Not that my guys and girls, my pacemakers, aren't motivated. They're very, very motivated. They're fantastic, talented runners, and they're really good at keeping those who are with them upbeat and on pace as well. So that's a good thing. But if you're looking at somewhere between 2.5 and 3 hours, then as I understand it, there'll be runners kind of scattered through, helping you kind of keep your spirits up. Probably plying with jelly babies at irregular intervals as well. But we've also got a 120 pacer and a 125 pacer this year. So if you're at the sharper end of proceedings, then you've got some company with a guy with a stick coming out of his back with a flag on it. Anyway, next question. Jill, I have the same question as Claire. I'm running the Virgin London Marathon on 26th of April. Do I taper before running? Well, okay, this question's about whether you want to taper before running if you're using it as a stepping stone event. And I'll say yes and no. You don't want a full-on 2-week taper like you would do if this was your main focus, because you're going to miss too much training. You do want to kind of get a good idea as to where you are with your training when it comes to running and half marathon fitness, but you can't afford to take too much out. So a lower volume week, definitely. And my Intelligent Marathon training program, I recommend 3 runs a week again, and when you get to the taper week and even the recovery weeks, you're just reducing the volume, but you're increasing the intensity. So you're still doing shorter runs, but faster runs as well. So sort of 60-second even intervals where you're really, really going for it hard and fast, and then you're backing off and recovering for longer periods of time. So you're not really covering much distance, the volume's low, but you still keep the intensity. And that gives your body a chance to adapt without overstressing it, without dropping your fitness levels too much. For a recovery week, which would be perfect just before Reading, then I would recommend you follow that sort of principle. If it was my program, that's what you do. Your training program might suggest different. If you're asking the question, it suggests that your program, if you're following one at all, doesn't suggest that. So that would be my recommendation, and that's what you asked for. Claire Priestley, great seminar. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dave, really helpful. Many thanks. That's really. I wonder if that's you signing off. Oh, Dave Jones has a question here. Quick question, how do I balance running gels versus the Lucozade drinks given out on the day? Great question, Dave. I don't use traditional energy gels personally. They work for some people in the sense that they will give you that boost of energy, but there's always something that you will pay for. You don't get something for nothing, okay? It's not just like, I don't just mean you have to pay the Lucozade guys when they give you the Lucozade on the course. They're one of the race sponsors. Been great stuff for the Running Half Marathon over the years. But what I will say is practice. Now, if you haven't been practicing with Lucozade, if you haven't been practicing with gels, then don't take gels on a day. Please, please, please don't take gels on a day if you haven't practiced with them. If you have, and you can go onto the website, I think you can see exactly what gels and drinks are going to be available to you on the course and beforehand as well. And if you practice with those things beforehand, then fine. If it's part of your strategy, then do it. But do not use the race as an opportunity to try new things. It's quite tempting when you got all these. I mean, gels are a couple of quid, and Lucozade bottles again £1.50, £2, and they're giving the stuff away on the race day. It's very tempting to try and get your money's worth. You feel like you kind of earned this, and grab as much as you can, but your guts are likely to revolt against you. So to put it mildly, it doesn't always happen, but many people find they have issues if they start using gels and high maltodextrin based products like Lucozade, and I actually know what's in Lucozade, but high sugar drinks and so on, sports drinks that they haven't been practicing with. That's not to say that will happen to you, but if you practice with it on your long runs, then you have a much better chance of on the day itself having a better response. So that would be my advice of that. And Lucozade, and it works for many people. If it didn't, then they wouldn't be in business. Okay, Claire, you mentioned body conditioning, which included not thumb rolling, foam rolling. And foam rolling is a bit like thumb rolling. It's like a massage. So that's kind of where the thumb bit comes in, I suppose. But no, foam rolling is where you get like a tube of foam, high density foam. I think they sell them in the sweatshop, actually. I'm pretty certain about that. They've got most of that kind of thing in there. Tube of foam, you roll in it, so you kind of sit down on the floor and you roll over it. I think I've got a video on the website, my website, about it. It's only on my YouTube channel. Go to my YouTube channel, which this is broadcast from, and search for foam rolling. It's got a couple of videos on there. And you can get trigger point balls as well that you put on your foot. None of this is very pleasant, by the way. This isn't a fun thing to do. This hurts, but it's also very, very beneficial in terms of recovery. So give it a go. Nicola, great video, thanks. Glad you're enjoying it. And we've got good numbers of viewers as well, so that's good to see. Claire, how far should I be running for my long run this week? Okay, Claire, I'm guessing that you're not on my email list yet, because otherwise I answered that question on Sunday with the email I sent out. If you go to, actually, I think I'm writing a blog about this. In answer to your question, if you go to the website, if you go to my website, readinghalfmarathontraining.co.uk, email, get on the list, add yourself to the list, and you'll get a copy of the training program. Now, you don't want to switch programs at this stage. Whatever you're doing, but you'll see how I build it up. And you'll also notice I don't go for a longest long run in distance. I work in time. So I build up to a longest long run in, I think it's 120 minutes for the main program. So 2 hours is the longest long run. And given that you're going to be running slower in my training program than you would do on race day for those long runs, for the reasons I briefly went into earlier, then you're probably not going, if you're a 2 hour runner, then you're not going to get to 13 miles. So it depends. If you're a 1 hour 30 runner, in 2 hours, you'll probably get to about 14 or 15 miles for the longest long run. If you're looking at 2 hours 30, you might only get to 9 miles or 10 miles, maybe even less. Okay, so it doesn't matter, and there are many reasons why I recommend limiting your longest long run in terms of time. It just takes too much out of your body. If you're looking at 2 hours 30, you try and go to 13 miles in training, you're going to be running for almost 3 hours. If you, again, at least 2 hours 45, if you go by my premise that you should be running your long runs slower than race pace, which is pretty reasonably scientifically backed theory there. You want aerobic gains, you run a half marathon pace, which is a difficult, torturous race distance to race over, then you're not going to get purely aerobic gains. So you need to slow down. If that's the case, running for 3 hours is going to destroy you for days, which means you won't get the same benefits from subsequent training sessions. So it's like robbing from Peter to give to Paul. So this is not worth doing it. So check out the training program. You'll see how I build up my long run distances. Harriet, FabVid will try and take on board everything you said. Just do those 7 simple things, Harriet, and you'll be golden on the day. Ems, hi George, great advice, thanks. What is your advice in terms of the energy gels during the race? I think you asked that 12 minutes ago, so I might have answered that in the meantime. Another question, also, I've hurt my knee, so I've not been running this week. Advice from my physio housemate. I've just been doing 45 minutes on the cross trainer, the normal gym sessions. Any more advice on that? Get it seen to this. Well, you've got a physio housemate. If they've told you, with a reasonably accurate idea as to what's going on there, what the problem is, then follow that advice. Rest as much as you can, and if you do get injured at this stage of the game, then it's not game over by any means, but it might require you to readjust your expectations, and that's far better to do that than to assume that if you have to take a great swathe of time out from your training program at this point, that you're going to be in the same form as if you hadn't taken that time out. Because if that was the case, then every training program would have 2 weeks with a knee injury factored in, and they don't. So you might have to make those adjustments. But don't worry about it, because like I said, yeah, this is all part of the fun and games of training for a half marathon. Suzanne, thank you so much for your time. It's my pleasure. I'm already doing levers 1 to 5. Good, that's what I'd like to hear. And great to have them reinforced. Brilliant. The massage and visualization are 2 things I haven't thought of, so I'll take it on board. Brilliant. One question I have: what is your recommendation for dealing with a stitch? Ha! Glad you asked. I quite often get one under my ribs. Sometimes I'm only approximately 6 miles in. Go to, again, on my YouTube channel where you're watching this from here. I did a video a couple of years ago now on how to avoid getting a stitch and what to do if you get a stitch. Okay, one of them is about breathing like a baby, which is how to avoid getting it in the first place. And another one is about what to actually do. When I started running, I was about 8 years old when I started running with my dad. He took me out. He was in the army. He'd take me out running in his lunch breaks. That's how I got into all this game. And I asked him the exact same question, actually. Dad, how do I stop getting a stitch? I wasn't 6 miles in at the time. I was only 8 years old. Give me a break. But he told me to do this. He says, right, well, George, as you're running along, you just get your arm and you do this with your arm on the sides. The stitch is on their side here. You just keep on circling your arm. So I did, and I kind of felt really silly. But what I realized was that my attention was distracted by how silly I felt. Swinging my arm around there, my stitch miraculously disappeared. So that might work for you. I think it's something to do with stretching out the rib cage muscles, but I just think he was trying to make me look silly. Anyway, I didn't care. So yeah, have a look at the videos, because there are a couple of good ones on there that will hopefully give you some explanation. Next question, Sarah. Great questions tonight, by the way. Thanks for your participation. I normally run in kilometers with Map My Run. Should I change how I measure pace distance to miles? Yeah, no, I wouldn't worry about it. The markers will be in miles. And that is very, very helpful. When you're there on the day I'm running, you don't run the distance, you run the race. Okay, that's big important thing to remember. You're very, very likely to run more than 13.1 miles, because there's only one line that in the London Marathon they have this blue line, this magical blue line that runs around the course. That's your 26.2 mile marker. You deviate off that line, going around a corner, you're going to be running further. Stands to reason. It's just the way geometry works. Same thing with Reading, it's just to be half the amount. So there's only one line, it's not even marked on there, so you're just taking the best guess of the shortest distance, and there's other runners there, you're going to be running further, which is why the mile markers are really handy, but also the pacemakers. Grab a pacemaker, stick with them like glue. Like I said, there are 5-minute increments from 1 hour 30, that's me, right the way around to 2 hours 30, actually 1 hour 20, 125, I'm 130, then it goes around to 2 hours 30 in 5-minute increments. So use the pacemakers and they'll help you. If it helps you kind of psychologically to work in miles, then make the switch now. But otherwise, it doesn't really make a huge difference, because you'll understand minutes per kilometer. That's all a foreign language to me. I feel like I should know it, but I don't. I just know the minutes per mile. Some people work in miles an hour. I think these are the treadmill people who just train on treadmills. They know how fast they're running in miles an hour. Completely pointless. Anyway, let's have a look. Next question. Another, do I recommend the use of gels? Again, I've answered that one already. Jess, is it essential to drink during the race? No, it's not. It can help, but it's not essential. I tend not to drink on my longer runs and focus on hydration pre and post run. If that's what you've been doing, then that's fine. Again, not worth trying anything different on the day itself. It really isn't. It's in March, unlikely to be a scorching hot day. It has been warm in recent years at the half marathon, but you know, it depends on what you've been, how used you are to not having any fluids on board during the race. It would probably help you if you did, but not if you haven't been training with it. Just don't do anything different on the day. Joe, wonderfully informative webinar. Thank you very much. Great to know I'm doing most of the levers. Good for you. I'm looking forward to an extra massage. Any excuse? Yes, absolutely. So George says I need to have a massage. That's the way to convince your other half. Claire, I've just put myself in your email list. Brilliant. Well done. Another one from Claire. So if I'm aiming for 2 hours 20, what speed should I be running for my training? Well, 2 hours 20 for a half marathon is going to be around about 10:35, something like that. It's on the bottom of the sheet anyway. Bottom of the program download will have your average pace. So if that's the case, let's say, for example, it's 10:35 per mile for a 2:20 finish time. Claire, I would recommend you run your long runs no quicker than a minute slower, so 11:30. For a marathon program, I recommend 60 to 90 seconds per mile slower. So for a half marathon program, technically it should be slower again, because you're running faster at a half than you would if you were doing a marathon, because it's half the distance. Not half the work, but it's half the distance. And so you probably add a little bit more on. But the closer you get to 2:30 and beyond, so slower than 2:30, the less time you have to add on to be able to still maintain those aerobic gains. Otherwise, most people would be running, if you're a 3-hour half marathon runner, running 2 minutes slower than that, you're going to be walking pretty slowly. So it doesn't have to be that much slower, but certainly add on 55, 60 seconds to that time. I think like I said, 10:25, add on a minute, it's going to give you, say, 11:25. And that's your pace. In my program as well, you'll notice I have race pace practice as well, which is where you get to step up as a part of your training, your long training run, to run at race pace. Not all of it, but some of it. And that gives your body benefits of the aerobic gains and the lower stress levels, but also that practice at just running at the speed you're going to be hitting on a day. It's quite hard to do that if you haven't got some fancy gizmo that's going to tell you how fast you're running, like a watch, a GPS watch, or use Map My Run on your iPhone or whatever. And if you haven't got that functionality, then you kind of just got to go out what you feel, but just make sure that the slower runs are definitely slower for the most part. Good question. Jan, it's the last question. If you've got questions, any more questions, got about 8 minutes to go till the hours. Actually, I can go on all night, but the webinar is actually only set for an hour, so the screen will probably blank out in a few minutes, and I'll still be talking. So Jan's question is, foam roller convert, you're a foam roller convert, good, and visualization has worked for me. Fantastic. I have a personal positive mantra, which I repeat when I go and get stuff. Mantras, now that's a great one that comes. I'll be talking about that when I go into some of the mindset emails that are going to be coming your way if you're on my list in kind of the real last lead up. But mantras when you're running, and someone actually asked that question, what do I think about? And I do have these mantras. One of the mantras I had when I was training for the 10 and 10 and doing some of those marathons, and they're all within myself, so they're all kind of slower than I would normally run a marathon. So the slowest was 4.5 hours, the quickest was 3 hours 56, where I was really having to work for it. That was day 9 as well, would you believe it? But one of the things I did was I just kind of clenched my fingers very lightly together like this, and I really focused on my form, and I just kept saying to myself, relax, have patience. Relax, have patience, relax, have patience. And I found that really, really helped, just telling myself to relax, first of all. And the patience thing was a key thing as well, because, you know, we want things now. We want to be at the end, we want to be finished, we want to have done everything, we want everything now, like right now. So the patience thing was really important to me, that I have to just run the next footstep and the next footstep and the next footstep. And for me, that was a really, really important mantra, and one that worked brilliantly. But yeah, if you have whatever mantra you have, it might be just keep going, just whatever you can say over and over to yourself. I happen to have anchored that to a relaxing situation. So I use a bit of NLP and anchor doing that. Not really meditating, but it helps me when I do that, just to kind of go back to that place, and I feel just supremely relaxed. And that really helps when you're kind of getting tense and stressed when you're racing or you're running, and you know, you're worrying about your performance, you're worrying about whether it's going to all go your way. You can just take a moment back and relax. So mantras are a very, very useful thing to do. I don't really want to get into too much detail on that in tonight's webinar. I'll write an email about it in due course. I believe that's the end of the question. So well done or thank you very much for attending, first of all. And you know, you're at a great place at the moment, an exciting place with the training, because there's 4 weeks to go. The bulk of the hard work has been done. Pull those 7 little levers for the next 4 weeks, and you are in for a spectacular day on March 22nd. Just to finish off, go to readinghalfmarathontraining.co.uk, put your email address in the box. The training program is probably superfluous, but I'll send it to you anyway. But you'll get my emails, which I tend to send out on a Sunday night, and they're going to increase in frequency the closer we get to the race as well. If you have other questions for me, the best place to ask them is to use the link that I posted to one of the first comments of this post, which is the link to the Running Half Marathon training group that I have set up. There's only about 300 members in there at the moment, so come along, ask any questions, share your triumphs, your glories, your challenges, your obstacles, and it's a really good community there that's working together to help everybody get the best out of their performance and their experience of the Running Half Marathon. So thanks again for tuning in tonight. I'm George Anderson, and I'm really, really excited for you, and I look forward to seeing you on the start line on March 22nd. Bye for now.